Hi, my name is Elias, and this is our third video in a tutorial series covering Adobe Photoshop. In this tutorial, we're going to go over how to combine edited individual images into a composite image that's made up of multiple layers and multiple images. So in the previous tutorial, we covered how to edit a single image. Now we'll be combining multiple images at this stage of the workflow to create an image that's made up of multiple components added together. So let's get started. So here I have the file that we've been working on in the previous tutorials, and before I start adding any imagery to this file, I'm going to organize the layers that I have here. The reason for this is that as I start to add additional imagery and layers to this file, it'll become very confusing which adjustments apply to which layers and what order I actually want all of those layers and adjustments to appear. So it's best to group layers together that you'll want to move and hide at the same time. The way to do this is by selecting the bottom layer of the range that you want to group, selecting the top layer of the range, and then using Control G to group them. You can also press the group layer key down here. Now that these layers are grouped, I can hide and collapse them all at the same time. I can turn them on and off, and then recollapse them. I can turn them all off at the same time as well. So now I'm ready to start bringing in some other imagery. And I have another file open here, which is not a photograph, but a drawing, also from the primer. And I think it'll be interesting to see how the drawing and the photograph sort of interact with one another. And so I'm going to drag this layer that the drawing is on up to the file that I want to drop it into, and then just let go. You can see that created a layer that has the drawing in it, and it's trimmed because the file that I took it from is a higher resolution than the file I'm working in. And so I'll need to scale this down to fit my canvas. I'm also going to right click and flip horizontal. So now you can see this layer completely obscures the layer below it. What we want to do is start to find a way that these two layers are both revealing themselves in the image, that they're added together to create a composite collage. One way to do that is by changing the opacity of the top layer. So you can take this down to, say, 50%. So half of the intensity of the base layer, this group that we made here, is coming through the top layer, which we have here, and you can make that more or less transparent. But that's all sort of very even blending of the two layers. One way that we can be more selective about what is revealed and what is hidden from the two layers is by changing the blending mode of this top layer, which we'll call the blending layer. Right now it's set to normal, but if I press this drop-down menu, you can see there are many options for blending this top layer with the base layer. The first 5 involve darkening, where pixels are compared between the blending layer and the base layer, and the darker of the two is given precedence. And there are various ways that that happens through a simple binary, which is darker, by multiplying the darkness of the pixels together to create an enhanced darker image, and other various filters that deal with color and contrast. You also have a selection of layer modes which deal with lightening. So areas of the blending layer which are darker than the base layer are not revealed. Areas that are lighter in the blending layer are revealed. And you have a similar set of layer modes here that deal with varying degrees of lightness coming through in the top layer. You also have a series that deal with the contrast between the two layers and therefore reveal both sort of at the same time. So when you're starting to compose your collages, you might start experimenting with which layer modes are showing the information that you want to see. So I kind of like this, where the drawing is seen through the facade in the foreground. And maybe I'll change the transparency of that layer a little bit so that you still see some of that image coming through. So now we have a composite image that's both drawing and photograph and has this space of the drawing overlaid with the space created by the photograph. Another way that you might want to combine images is through copying and pasting a specific portion of another image. So I have here a file that has a figure in it that you might want to include in your collage. And in order to copy this figure into my working file, I need to select the figure. And so I think the easiest way to do that is with the magic wand to select the background, Control-Shift-I to invert the selection so that I am now selecting everything that isn't background. And I should also save this selection because I think I might want to come back to it later. If I save this selection now and lose it for some reason, say I deselect with Control-D, I go off and do something else and discover I want to return to that selection, all I need to do is go to Select, Load Selection, and find that selection from the menu here, and it will come back to me. Now that I have this selected, I can copy it with Control-C. I can paste it into my working file with Control-V, and you can see that once again, that working image is a lower resolution than the image I'm trying to paste into it, and so I need to scale this to sort of fit on our canvas. And maybe I'll distort this a little bit so that it seems to sort of connect some different areas of this drawing. Press Enter to confirm. And now maybe I also want this stair to bleed through the facade, but be masked by the white brick. And so I'll choose a similar blending mode that is going to allow the lighter brick to shine through, but reveal the stair behind. And maybe if I put this behind the drawing, it'll be a little less dramatic. But you can see how starting to experiment with layer modes, with layer order, allows you to start seeing different ways of collaging these spaces together and collaging these photographs to create space. So yeah, I think I'll leave that with lighten. So we just have this sort of suggestion of a stair going up. We have the vanishing point of the photograph bringing us down this way, as well as this kind of third space of the drawing all overlaid on top of one another. And I'm sure that you'll find ways to be even more inventive in adding and layering different images together. So that's how to create a collage additively. In the next tutorial, we'll go over how to subtract from images and cut away parts that you don't want to see using masks. And between these additive tools and the subtractive tools of the masks, you should be all set to start collaging digital images together with the same ease that you would analog tools, analog collages.